League of Legends. Now that all of the women have left in disgust, let's talk business. League of Legends was first created by the CIA as a continuation of the 1960 Harvard experiments to see just how much abuse someone can suffer before they stop playing fucking Yasuo.
Kill me.
Fortunately, Riot Games no longer holds any ties to government entities, and any censorship is purely accidental. Arcane is a story about what having no father does to a motherfucker, based on the hit psychological torture simulator, League of Legends. Set in the twin cities of Buda and Pest, it follows a pair of sisters from Scenic District 8, as they engage in fatherless behavior from terrorism to lesbianism. Before we get into it, there are 3 things we should cover. First, if you enjoy the video, please like and subscribe. Second, I hadn't played any League of Legends going into the show, which I credit for my overall well-adjusted nature. Depending on if you have or have not wasted several weeks attempting to push mid lane to middling effect, Arcane can be a very different experience. If you're more familiar with Summoner's Rift than the eyes of a woman, then there's a decent chance you'll either be upset at the lore implications of a yordle in a gimp suit, or you'll be able to tell just who in this death trap is not a canon champion. But watching Arcane as an existing fan of League does give the opportunity to watch every single character's life get worse with a sense of dramatic irony, except for Jayce, who you get to watch make everyone else's life worse, particularly the viewers.
Yes!
Am I interrupting?
No!
Third, because of the structure of the series, the entire review will contain spoilers for up to episode 3, so let's get those out of the way. The story opens on a heist to steal depleted uranium rods that were harvested from average Australian wildlife, perpetrated by 4 orphans, Vi, Powder, and their brothers, not and important.
And then there's Chunky. He's dead. Chunky's dead.
The safe and democratic Republic of Piltover then sends their extrajudicial kill squads to apprehend these children while they hold a fair trial against the inventor, Jayce. Like any good scientist about to face the consequences of his ethically sound experiments, he is given the choice of suicide or helping the Russians for the good of the people.
What was noise?
Glorious evolution.
Not the people in the slums, though, who are currently being terrorized by Monster Energy CEO Rodney Sachs, who has devised a serum for creating actual monsters by injecting it into the veins of their lab-synthesized femboy Carlo, with the sole purpose of punching his way through this door specifically to kill the father of the aforementioned gutter rats. However, most of them fulfill their role as food for Powder, as she does a better job of separating her own family than Mordekaiser could ever hope to. The rest of the story takes place years into the future. Jayce is following the well-trodden path of Soviet scientist to political actor. Rodney Sachs has gotten all of the Undercity addicted to the refreshing energy of Monster Zero Ultra, and Powder, now Jinx, is certainly living up to her new name.
I have a bomb! I have a bomb!
The best scenes of Arcane are those incorporating music, particularly in the final part of the season, with the fight between Echo and Jinx being the best in the series. The music is split between the cinematic tracks, which serve their purpose, and the insert songs, which are where the series really shines. While on the subject of audio, the voice acting is stellar, particularly Jinx's voice actresses. Both of them do a great job portraying her journey to reach the heights of I Can Fix Her. Aside from Jinx, the villains of the series have appropriately intimidating voices that reflect their villainous status, as a flamboyant male and a butch woman.
Please marry me. Thank you.
The most widely praised part of Arcane is its visuals. The show uses a cel-shaded style not dissimilar to something like Into the Spider-Verse, while also mixing traditional 2D animation into the visual effects to excellent result. The most obvious example is with Jinx's schizoaffective episodes. Representations of her thoughts in the style of graffiti flash over the scene, with the jacket's style and quick editing reflecting her psyche being more fractured than her own family, which she murdered by bomb, bullet, and bomb again, respectively. Beyond the animation techniques, Arcane adds weight to its scenes through dynamic camera movement. Impacts shake the screen almost as much as the humble Jax player shakes after going to meet his 14-year-old bride and hearing that laugh.
He's in the wall. He's in the goddamn wall!
It adds a kinetic feeling to the fight scenes, which are overall brutal and dirty, not unlike the portrayal of the world they take place in. The production design of Arcane manages to communicate much about its narrative, world, and characters, from the chaotic architecture of the Undercity, reminiscent of a Wuhan wet market, right down to the inexplicable presence of bats, and the orderly shapes of Piltover, to the color palette that looks like the residents of Zorn are constantly being treated to mandatory re-education via caramel dancing. Every single aspect of the visuals communicates more about the world. Most effective is the character designs. For example, the design of Das Piltover Waffenschutzstaffel serves three purposes. It manages to make the enforcers look intimidating, reinforce the class's themes, and make it harder to identify which of the Kampfgruppen use the appropriate amount of force on the denizens of the Zorn-Birkenau labor camp.
If you ever catch the eye of a female cop, hope you wore your bulletproof vest.
They both cannot and do not want to breathe the same air as the people of Zorn, literally and metaphorically. The character design is similarly detailed for all characters, though perhaps none so much as my favorite, Silco. Silco is a kind industrialist who runs job creation schemes in the toxic sludge pits and funds programs to teach children useful life skills such as domestic terrorism.
Hit.
His character design is second only to that of the Enforcers, and also serves a deeper purpose, though he rises above the asymmetry present in the rest of the Undercity's designs and characters, just as he does with its violence, but it's all a facade. He's a much deeper character than he initially appears on the surface. Honestly, he carries most of the writing, all thanks to the purely paternal affection he feels for his daughter.
Holy shit, grooming works!
What nationality was the studio again? Though the other characters aren't to be dismissed so easily. There's Jinx, former emotionally stunted child and current emotionally stunted teenager, Vi, gay-bait domestic abuse perpetrator, Caitlyn, an extended reference to Common People by Pulp, Jayce,
What the fuck's your problem?
and Victor, the glorious evolutionary dead end. Though the narrative focuses primarily on Jinx and Vi, sisters who are constantly forced apart, even as their relationship buckles and breaks trying to hold them together. The tension of partners, family and friends being pulled apart is a common theme throughout all of the different stories of Arcane. Aside from Jinx and Vi, none are more prominent than that of Jayce. Do I think Jayce should be fed through a wood chipper? No, I get the purpose and flaws of his character, whether I like them or not, even if Season 2 tried to make me wish for his death all over again. Jayce is an inventor cum politician cum Stain, who, over the course of the series, flounders back and forth between half a dozen different ethical systems and just as many atrocities. Considering the story the writers were trying to tell, he's a well-written character, but his inconsistency makes him obnoxious at best. The nicest thing I can say about Jayce is that I get what they were going for, even if what they were going for was an any percent speedrun of the Geneva checklist.
Spiders! Get 'em off me! Get 'em off me!
Arcane Season 1 made the correct decision to focus on telling the story of a very small handful of characters, instead of juggling too much of its cast. The overall quality can be quite variable, none of them reach the highs or lows of Silco or Jayce. Were it to stop there, it would be an excellent show.
Sometimes foreshadowing is relatively obvious.
No crackers, Gromit. We've forgotten the crackers.
It's a good thing Arcane Season 2 got made, not because of its quality, god no, but because I was worried this would be less of a review and more of an extended glazing session. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. In short, watch Season 2, but adjust your expectations. Even if it was disappointing, it has real merit. So let's start with what I did like. The visual presentation is almost unilaterally better in the second season. The only exception is with the character designs, which were largely changed for the worse. Aside from the questionable decision to bone mash Warwick with a liter of absolute vodka and a sledgehammer, Season 2 is visual gold. The 2D effects in the first season were subtle, mostly being unnoticeable if you weren't actively looking for them. But in the second, they take center stage. Then there are those scenes where Victor enters the second dimension to be with his imaginary wife and drags the rest of the show with him. Yeah! Or when the style changes entirely, such as the funeral at the beginning of episode 1. While the animation is excellently realized, the way it comes together feels less evocative. It would be like night and day to compare the opening to Season 1 to the aftermath of Jinx's moderate amount of trolling.
I'm a fire in my laser!
And then there's the audio. My problem with it is how the vocal tracks are used more than their presence. At its best, you get scenes like Echo and Jinx's minor domestic dispute, but at its worst, you get the opening to episode 7, completely divorced from its narrative context. 5 of the 9 episodes open like this, and in the end it just feels like wasted potential, especially with how gorgeously animated they are.
Hi, my name is Franklin Hammer. In 2014, I had an idea. I should kill people. So to help me, I invented this bad boy.
The worst aspect of Season 2 is the writing. As mentioned, the first season was primarily about Jinx and Vi, with Jayce taking a prominent side role. In the second season, they cover the arcs of more than twice that number of characters. In the end, the narrative feels rushed, which is to say nothing of the narrative's rushed end.
That's it?
On the subject of moving too quickly, lesbian sex.
Yes! Hell yeah! Hey, come on, baby! Come on! Yes! Come on!
One of the worst offenders for developing too quickly is the relationship between Vi and Caitlyn. And before you finish that comment, let me just say, I don't have a problem with your ship. I'm glad it floats. I just think that it came to dock too quickly. Speaking of docking...
I'm a lesbian.
What?
I'm a lesbian too.
Ah, come on. Is there anyone in this franchise who loves men?
In order to get around having too many characters to give due justice, half of them are shoved in a barrel for most of the season. Mel, Echo, and Victor had stories I cared about, but they had such little presence for most of the series that I was worried they'd been forgotten. Also Jayce, but I was more so happy that he was sent to the PTSD dimension. And when they were remembered, they changed too quickly. In Victor's case, twice.
Get ready to receive some Holy Spirit.
And that's to say nothing of Jinx, who, with no explanation, went from unmediated chaos in Season 1 to unmedicated ADHD in Season 2. Season 2 isn't awful. If it weren't a sequel to what is easily one of my top 5 shows, I would adore it. But there were things I enjoyed. Ambessa was a decent replacement for Silco. Episode 7 of the second season is the best in the series, half because they narrowed the focus to a single character, and half because Jayce got to feel 1% of the pain of watching him. Maybe just playing the scene where Jayce falls in a hole over and over again would have made the audience happy. And if this video happened to make you happy, like, subscribe, and leave a comment in ascending order of preference. The next video is in the works, so expect more slop soon.